Now available for the first time in paperback. Stop Simping: Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance. Learn what mistakes not to make with women in the dating scene with Stop Simping: Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance. Available in paperback and online booksellers today. There was a major confrontation in Charlottesville, Virginia that nearly escalated into a riot. Now, on one side, we had this group of white supremacists who came all across the country to Charlottesville, Virginia to protest plans to remove a statue of Robert E. Lee. And they said they were going there to protest this because they felt like this was a plan to, one, revise history, and two, encroach on their constitutional rights to free speech and freedom of expression. And they said they were going there to protest this, and they did this by one day going to protest by carrying torches, and then on another day, the Saturday, coming there to protest again, to protest the removal of the statue. However, as these white supremacists came to Charlottesville, there were a group of counter-protesters coming out to protest these white supremacists coming to their area. And as these two groups began to confront each other, it escalated into violence. Eventually, it escalated so far that one of these white supremacists decided to take his car and then plow it into the crowd, killing a white woman. And in an indirect result, two state troopers lost their lives because they were in a helicopter monitoring these events, and then their helicopter crashed and both men lost their lives. Now, I look at this whole Charlottesville situation and I see it from an objective perspective. And from that objective perspective, I can see the denial that both groups are in regarding racism here in America. Now, when I look at the white supremacists, yes, they are racist. Yes, they are white supremacists. However, they have a little bit better understanding of the United States Constitution than the counter-protesters, because when it came down to the white supremacists, they understood what free speech and freedom of expression was all about. And what they were trying to say is, if you remove this Robert E. Lee statue, even though it is racist, it infringes upon the First Amendment rights of freedom of speech and freedom of expression in America, and that curtails people's freedom of speech and freedom of expression in America. Their argument was valid, but even though they are racist, they had a valid argument. Because if you took down the statue of Robert E. Lee, what's to stop someone from taking down a statue of Martin Luther King Jr.? And what's to stop people from trying to revise history? Now, on the other side, the counter-protest, they said they were protesting these guys because they were racist and white supremacist. And yes, they have a right to protest them. However, these people are in serious denial about the racist problem and the white supremacy problem here in America. Because anyone who can objectively look at racism and white supremacy in America can see that many of those white people who were counter-protesting received a lot of benefits from white supremacy here in America. Because many of these people who say, oh, I'm not racist, are actually in the closet with their racism and express it every day. So they are on the same side as the white supremacists, but they don't want to admit that they are just as racist and white supremacist as those white supremacists. And this is the big problem with America, and this is why I say America will never be great, because most Americans are just in denial about the whole foundation of this country, which was founded on white supremacy, founded on racism, and that can be seen in documents such as the Manifest Destiny. But you can't tell that to most Americans because they believe in the propaganda of the great American melting pot and everybody getting along. We know that this isn't true because if it were true, we would not have elected Donald Trump to the presidency of the United States. And your Donald Trump also showed us how he supports white supremacy because he didn't come out and actively condemn this act of terrorism. He pretty much stayed silent regarding the whole thing, not saying a single word to condemn these urban terrorists who were actively not terrorizing people of color, but they were terrorizing other white people, which shows us how dysfunctional our country has become regarding this race issue. This race issue and this white supremacy issue has deteriorated to the point where now we're having these white supremacists and other white people fighting each other when they're actually really on the same side and want the exact same things. They say they don't want the exact same things, but all we have to do is look at their actions, and they speak louder than their words, because we have one side that admits what it is and everybody knows what they're about, but the other side is actually more dangerous because they're actually in denial about this country and the concepts that it was founded on. If you look at the way this country was founded, it was founded primarily by white males for white males, and that's something that's in the framework of it. Moreover, what's also in the framework of it are people like your Robert E. Lee, and to take down their statues is denying the problem and trying to revise history to say that you're not racist and that you didn't benefit from white supremacy. I'm sad to see that so many people lost their lives as a result of this, and so many people were injured. But when I look at the state of this country, it's in denial about racism. It's in denial about white supremacy. I mean, you have these people who will go out here and protest a statue being removed, but they won't sit here and try to do anything about the numerous black men who have been murdered over the last 8 years by police, or people like George Zimmerman. No, that's okay here in America, because Americans, again, are in denial about things, and they're expecting somebody like Donald Trump to come in, who is a white supremacist, and come in and make their country great, because they don't want to make their country great, because they don't want to do the hard work by acknowledging the problem of racism in America and acknowledging how they benefit from white supremacy. People are in denial about the state of this country and the state of decline that it's in, and that denial is more dangerous than these white supremacists who came to a place like Charlottesville. Those racist and white supremacists who came to Charlottesville, you could easily identify them and avoid them. The more dangerous people were the people in the counter-protest who were saying one thing, but at the end of the day, go out and do something else. Those people are extremely dangerous because they're the ones who say that they're not racist, but they're the ones who actively benefit from racism and white supremacy, and then they're the ones who go out here and support it. And what's even more dangerous than that is your government, which is led by a white supremacist like your Donald Trump, who said he wanted to make America great again, and then covertly gave a pass to people like your David Duke, your Ku Klux Klan, and your neo-Nazis by not condemning them for being the terrorists that they actually were. Now, these urban terrorists get a pass from your President of the United States, and the reason why they get a pass from your President of the United States is because they were the primary supporters of your current President of the United States, and most of those guys feel emboldened by your President of the United States to participate in acts of violence because he has given them a covert, unofficial rubber stamp to participate in these acts of violence. And sadly, most of these so-called non-racist white people actively go along with this type of stuff because these are the same people who would sit there and say, oh, that the deaths of people like Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner and Michael Brown, okay, that's okay, and aren't outraged about that. And they're not outraged enough to say that they want to take responsibility for their country and do things to actually make it great by taking responsibility for their country and taking their country in a direction that they believe will make their country really great. No, most people just want to be comfortable. They want to sit there and say, we just have to sit there and take this, instead of being we the people and demanding better of ourselves and demanding better for our country. Because people who really care about their country are going to acknowledge this racism issue, which has plagued America for over 400 years, and finally start making efforts to deal with it, instead of trying to deny it, hide it, and then lie about it, and then say you're not a racist, when you benefited mostly from white supremacy and racism from day one. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.